FBI agents swarmed at Quiet Town Mechanics' off-limits workshop just as military helicopters roared overhead. For years, people had whispered about what Ethan Cole was hiding. But soon, the entire town would learn a truth that shattered every assumption they had about the quiet man who fixed their cars. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Not Just a Stories. Let's dive in. Everyone in Ashfield knew better than to approach the shed behind Ethan Cole's house. His main garage, where he repaired everything from pickups to lawnmowers, was typical enough. An oil-stained floor, tools hung neatly on pegboards, and the ever-present scent of grease and metal. But the building tucked behind his property was a different story entirely. It might as well have had electrified fencing. No one went in. No one even got close. Man deserves his privacy, some townsfolk would shrug. Others were less forgiving. Bet he's cooking meth, muttered Brenda from the diner. Or building bombs, added Greg Morrison, the hardware store owner. Guy like that, discharged from the military with no explanation. He's sitting on something big. Ethan paid no mind to the gossip. He'd been tuning out people since the day he arrived in Ashfield 3 years ago. The town was forgettable. Population just under 3,000, one stoplight, 3 churches, and a whole lot of peace and quiet. That's exactly why he chose it. He kept his head down, did top-tier engine work, and minded his own business. In return, the townspeople kept their distance from the scarred, broad-shouldered mechanic with the haunted stare. It worked perfectly, until Olivia Brooks and her teenage son Mason moved into a rental house on Sycamore Lane. No one knew. Their arrival would throw the entire balance into chaos. And Ethan? He had no idea the emotional walls he'd built were about to crumble. "Mom, I'm heading out," Mason called, snatching his backpack and stepping toward the front door. Olivia emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. At 38, she still looked youthful, though the lines around her eyes betrayed her worry. "Where to?" "It's almost dinner time. Cole's garage. Mr. Cole said I could watch him rebuild a transmission if I showed up before 6. Olivia's brow furrowed. "I'm not sure I like you spending so much time there. People in town have been saying things." "Like what?" Mason's body tensed, instantly on the defense like only a 15-year-old can be when something meaningful is threatened. "Just that Mr. Cole is different, keeps to himself. Maybe still dealing with stuff from the service." Mason rolled his eyes. "He's just quiet, Mom, and he knows everything about engines. Yesterday, he taught me how to diagnose a fuel injector issue just by sound. Has he ever talked about that shed behind his house? Mrs. Lewis at the store says no one's ever been inside. Nope, off limits. But that's his business, right?" He shifted impatiently. "Can I go now? I swear I'll be back by 7. Olivia hesitated. Since the divorce and their move 6 months ago, Mason had struggled. This interest in engines was the first spark of purpose she'd seen in him. Despite her gut concerns, she couldn't bring herself to squash it. 7, sharp, and straight home. "Thanks, Mom." Mason was already out the door. Watching him pedal away, Olivia couldn't shake the unease rising in her chest. They'd come to Ashfield to start over, to escape the wreckage of a failed marriage and the pain that came with watching a good man disappear into himself. Her husband had returned from his 3rd tour of duty changed, withdrawn, volatile. And eventually, he'd vanished from their lives completely, unwilling to let his family witness the collapse. She hadn't told Mason why she chose this town in particular, hadn't mentioned the military spouse rumors about Ashfield, about whispered treatments when conventional medicine failed. Olivia had no clue if those stories held any truth, but after exhausting every official channel, she'd followed even the faintest flicker of hope. What she never expected was for her son to be the one to reach the man at the center of those whispers. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag as he wrapped up a detailed explanation of the transmission rebuild. Mason Brooks was sharp. He asked smart questions and listened, really listened. Rare for any teenager. "That's about it for today," Ethan said, eyeing the wall clock. "Your mom expecting you back?" "Yeah, by 7. Mason hesitated, glancing toward the back windows, the ones that gave a partial glimpse of the shed behind the house. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Cole?" Ethan's shoulders stiffened. "Depends. What's in that back shed? The one everyone talks about?" "Private work," Ethan said flatly. "Nothing anyone else needs to worry about. Everyone needs their space." He cut Mason off, not harshly, but firm. "Some doors aren't meant to be opened. That shed's mine." Mason looked disappointed but nodded. "Sorry, I didn't mean to snoop." Ethan's stance softened. The kid reminded him of someone, a young soldier he'd once mentored. Same spark, same talent. That soldier had died in Ethan's arms after a roadside bomb tore their convoy apart. "It's fine," Ethan said, "but remember, curiosity can get people hurt." He pulled out his wallet. "Here's 20. For helping with the oil changes. You don't need to pay me just for asking questions." I'm paying you for the 3 oil changes you did while I was elbow deep in the Morrison job." Mason beamed, pocketing the bill. "Same time tomorrow?" "Sure. Now go. Don't make your mom worry." After Mason left, Ethan shut down the garage and walked the gravel path leading to his modest one-story home. The house had come with the garage when he bought the property, and it served his needs without question. But as he approached the back steps, something caught his eye. Movement near the side of the locked workshop. He froze instantly. His hand instinctively reached toward his hip, toward a weapon he hadn't carried in years. "Who's there?" he demanded, voice sharp and commanding. Sheriff Marcus Bennett stepped into the open, visibly uncomfortable at being caught. "Evening, Cole. Just making rounds." Ethan didn't buy it for a second. In 3 years, the sheriff had never once patrolled this far out, much less stepped onto his land. "Didn't realize my property was part of your patrol route now," Ethan said. Voice cool, eyes narrowed. Sheriff Bennett, a man in his 50s, with a leathery face and calculating eyes, didn't flinch. "Heard you've been spending time with that Brooks kid. He's interested in engines. I'm showing him the ropes. His mother know he's hanging around here?" Ethan's jaw tensed. "Ask her. I don't take on kids without their parents knowing." "Didn't accuse you of anything," Bennett replied calmly. But he didn't leave. Instead, he stepped a little closer. "People are talking, Cole. They say they've heard strange noises coming from that shed of yours late at night. Say there've been unfamiliar vehicles with out-of-state tags pulling in and out at weird hours." Ethan folded his arms across his chest. "Didn't think that was against the law." "It's not," the sheriff said, tone measured. "But practicing medicine without a license? That sure is." The words hit like a hammer. "I fix cars, Sheriff. That's all I do." Bennett's gaze didn't budge. "Funny thing. Bill Morrison's brother, the one with the traumatic brain injury from Afghanistan, hasn't been the same since he stopped by here. Not worse. Better. Guy couldn't string together a full sentence a month ago. Now he's talking, walking, holding a job. After one weekend at your place. Sounds like the specialists finally figured something out," Ethan said flatly. "Maybe," the sheriff said, unconvinced. "But Dr. Howard thinks otherwise. Says some of his patients are skipping follow-ups, claiming they found something better. He doesn't know what, but he's guessing it has to do with you." "Then maybe doctor." "Howard needs to focus on his own failures instead of mine," Ethan shot back. Sheriff Bennett took a slow step forward. His tone dropped lower. I'm not here to arrest anyone. If what you're doing helps these folks, good. But if someone gets hurt, I won't be able to protect you. I hope that doesn't happen. I really do. But there's heat coming, Ethan. You feel it too, don't you? Ethan kept his face unreadable. I'm not doing anything illegal. Hope you're right, Bennett said. But this conversation? It's not the last one we'll have. The sheriff turned and walked off into the dark, his boots crunching on gravel. As Ethan stood still, watching him go, a cold weight settled in his gut. He knew this rhythm. The signs were all there. Escalating interest, the wrong kind of questions, official involvement. It was happening again. The operation was compromised. He'd have to speed up his plan, either relocate, shut it down, or go silent. But every one of those options meant cutting off access to the people who had come to depend on him. People the system had given up on. People like his former unit brothers. Those who never made it back. Who died waiting for red tape to unravel. He stepped inside, locked the door behind him, and headed straight for a drawer in his study. Inside was a phone. Secure, encrypted, untouched since his last protocol transmission. He activated it, fingers moving with purpose, sending coded alerts to people he hadn't spoken to in months. The network had to be warned. He also made a mental note. No more late-night talks. No more open doors. And definitely no more curious teenagers hanging around too long. What Ethan didn't know was that his tense exchange with the sheriff had been witnessed from the edge of the woods. By someone hidden, someone young, and someone with questions burning even hotter now. And within 24 hours, that quiet curiosity would detonate into something far larger than anyone in Ashfield could have imagined. Mason lay wide awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, heart thudding. The conversation he'd overheard between Mr. Cole and Sheriff Bennett kept looping in his head. Practicing medicine without a license, veterans, traumatic brain injury. These weren't phrases you expected to hear about a local mechanic. What was Ethan hiding? The digital clock glowed. 1:17 a.m. Outside, the street was bathed in silver moonlight. The town slept in stillness. His mother would lose it if she caught him sneaking out. But he couldn't sleep, not with so many unanswered questions buzzing in his brain. 20 minutes later, Mason crouched near the back fence behind Cole's garage. The auto shop itself was dark and silent, but light seeped through the curtained windows of the back building, the one no one was allowed to enter. He crept closer, sticking to the shadows, his breath tight in his chest. He heard voices, not loud, calm, purposeful. 2 men. Then came a metallic scraping sound, like hospital equipment being wheeled across tile. This didn't sound like car repair. The building had no regular windows. But Mason spotted a small vent window high up near the roofline. Just beneath it stood a weathered oak tree, limbs reaching toward the building like a bridge. Climbing had never been his thing. But he grabbed the lowest branch and pulled himself up, rough bark scraping his palms. Up, up, branch by branch, until he reached one thick enough to edge out across, putting him level with the open window. Peering through the gap, he nearly lost his grip. The inside of the shed was nothing like a garage. On one side, rows of hospital beds lined the wall. 4 poles, monitors, and trays of instruments filled the space. On the other side, odd-looking machines gleamed under bright lights, part medical tech, part high-grade mechanics, with modifications Mason couldn't begin to understand. Everything was precise, clean, sterile. In the center of it all stood Ethan Cole, not in his usual jeans and hoodie, but in surgical scrubs. He was hunched over a tablet, speaking with a man in a wheelchair. Progress looks solid, Ethan was saying, but you're pushing your motor function recovery too aggressively. You need more rest between sessions. I don't have time, Cole, the man said urgently. The military docs gave me 6 months before the paralysis becomes permanent. That was 5 months ago. They don't know what they're talking about. I've seen recovery after years. If the neural mapping holds and the stimulation pattern stays consistent. Mason leaned in, desperate to hear more. But the branch beneath him shifted and groaned. Inside, both men snapped to attention. The man in the wheelchair went rigid. Someone's outside, he said, voice low. Ethan moved instantly. With a few rapid keystrokes, the lights dimmed. Stay here. Mason's pulse went wild. In a frantic scramble, he tried to back away, but his sneaker slipped. He fell halfway from the branch, crashing into another one, barely managing to hang on. The thud echoed through the night. A door slammed open. Footsteps pounded the gravel. "Who's out there?" Ethan shouted. His voice wasn't the calm, quiet tone Mason knew. It was clipped, forceful, edged with threat. A flashlight beam sliced through the dark and landed squarely on Mason's pale, terrified face. "Mason?" For a moment, nothing. Just silence. "Get down here." Now. With trembling knees and dirt-streaked palms, Mason lowered himself from the tree, heart hammering against his ribs. His sneakers hit the ground with a soft thud, and he turned to find Ethan standing a few feet away. Flashlight pointed low now, but expression unflinching. The calm mechanic Mason knew, the patient mentor with oil-stained fingers and quiet wisdom, was gone. In his place stood something else entirely. The soldier, stripped of pretense, sharp-eyed and cold. "What are you doing here?" Ethan's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I heard you and the sheriff talking," Mason stammered. "I got curious." "Curious?" Ethan echoed. Flat, unreadable. "You mean spying?" "No, I mean, maybe. I wasn't trying to—" Mason's words tangled as panic surged. "Are you really treating people? Like, medically?" The sheriff said. "The sheriff talks too much," Ethan muttered. He stepped forward and grabbed Mason's arm. Firm, not harsh, but there was strength in his grip. "How much did you see?" "Just a little," Mason said quickly. "Some machines? A guy in a wheelchair. That's it, I swear." Ethan's gaze bore down on him. "You think this is some kind of game? Something cool to post about?" "What happens in there isn't for curious kids. It's dangerous, experimental. It's not supposed to exist. But it's helping people," Mason insisted, eyes wide. "That's not the point," Ethan snapped. "If people find out, the wrong kind of attention follows. Government attention, legal attention. I go to prison, and the men and women I treat, they go back to pain, silence, being forgotten." Mason swallowed hard. "I won't tell anyone. You already know too much. I mean it. I won't say anything. Not even to my mom." Ethan released his arm, sighing through his nose. He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking older, heavier, like the weight of the past decade had just landed on his shoulders again. "You shouldn't have seen this," he said quietly. "You don't understand what you've stepped into." Then Mason said something that froze Ethan in place. "Could you help my dad?" Ethan's head turned, sharp and cautious. "Your dad? He was in the Marines. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. He came back with brain damage, PTSD. Couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. My mom tried everything, therapy, medication, even programs in other states. Nothing worked. He left a year ago, said he didn't want us to watch him fall apart." A long silence passed between them. The flashlight flickered as Ethan shifted his weight. "What's his name?" he asked. "Staff Sergeant David Brooks, 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines." For a second, Ethan's posture changed. Something softened in his eyes, but only briefly. "I can't promise anything," he said slowly. "Every case is different. Depends on what he's dealing with, where he is." From inside the shed, a voice called Ethan's name. Urgent. He turned his head toward the noise. I need to get back. My patient can't wait. Mason's voice rose with new urgency. Can I come back? Just to learn? I won't say a word. Ethan looked at him, dead serious. Number. This isn't something you learn from the sidelines. This isn't a school project. It's life or death in there. You don't belong. But I just want to help. No buts, Ethan cut in. Firm now. Starting tomorrow, you show up at the main garage. We talk engines. That's it. What happened tonight? This conversation? It didn't happen. Got it? Mason nodded, eyes filled with confusion and a budding understanding that what he'd seen had changed him, and possibly everything else, forever. Just as dawn broke over Ashfield, Sheriff Marcus Bennett's phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. This is Agent Mercer with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We'll be conducting an operation in your jurisdiction this morning. We request that you maintain routine patrols and avoid the eastern sector of town. Bennett's spine stiffened in his chair. Mind telling me what this is about? I'm not at liberty to say, Sheriff. National security. The call ended without explanation. 10 minutes later, Bennett sat parked on the hill overlooking Cole's garage. His hand hovered near the radio. Warning Ethan would put him on the wrong side of the law, but staying silent made him feel complicit. Across town, Olivia poured Mason a glass of orange juice as he dragged himself to the table, shadows under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept a minute. You okay? She asked. You look off. Did something happen at Mr. Cole's? Number. I'm fine, Mason mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Before she could push further, the windows began to rattle. A deep, mechanical roar filled the air. Helicopters. Close. They rushed to the front door, just in time to see 3 sleek black choppers cutting across the sky, heading straight for Cole's property on the east side of town. Mason's voice broke into a whisper. Mom. Mr. Cole's in trouble. They were already in the car before she could respond. When they arrived, the garage and surrounding land were swarming with federal agents in full tactical gear. Mason tried to push past the barricade, but Sheriff Bennett intercepted him. Hold on, son. You can't go in there. You don't get it. He didn't do anything wrong. That's not for you to decide, Bennett said gently, hand firm on Mason's shoulder. Then it happened. The air split open as 3 massive CH-47 Chinook helicopters descended toward the field behind the garage. Their dual rotors thundered like an approaching storm. It was far more firepower than anyone expected for one man with a wrench. From the lead aircraft emerged a tall figure in full dress uniform, decorated, authoritative, unmistakable. I'm Major General Robert Hayes, United States Army, he said, approaching the federal lead. I need to speak with your agent in charge. Now. The town held its breath as Ethan Cole emerged from the house, unhandcuffed, composed. He walked beside the general and disappeared inside again with the lead FBI agent. Speculation surged. 10 minutes later, the door opened. General Hayes stepped forward, voice rising above the murmurs. There has been a critical misunderstanding. Mr. Ethan Cole is operating under a classified pilot program sanctioned by the Department of Defense. His work supports combat injured veterans through experimental rehabilitation techniques. His results speak for themselves. And as of now, this program is being expanded, not shut down. The onlookers stood stunned. Ethan's workshop was no longer a mystery. It was a battlefield lab, hidden in plain sight. Beside Olivia, Mason turned, eyes wide with awe. See, I told you. But Olivia stepped forward, voice unsteady. Mr. Cole, my husband. David Brooks, Marine, TBI, PTSD. He left a year ago. Ethan's eyes flicked to the general, who gave a solemn nod. We'll find him, Ethan said. And if he wants help, we'll try. 3 weeks later, the landscape of Ashfield had shifted. Military trucks were now a common sight. Ethan's once guarded shed had evolved into a licensed facility with security, personnel, and veterans lining up for treatment. Dr. Howard now worked inside the lab he once tried to shut down. humbled by the undeniable results happening around him. And then, on a night thick with rain and thunder, a military van rolled up in front of the Brooks home. The door opened. David stepped out. Thinner, paler, but upright. His posture had changed. His eyes were clear. He looked at Olivia, then Mason. Really looked at them, as if emerging from a long, dark fog. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. From his truck, parked across the street, Ethan watched the reunion unfold in the storm. He turned the key in the ignition and drove away before they saw him. Some moments, he thought, belong only to the people who earned them. Ashfield had whispered about a mechanic they didn't understand, but now they knew. He wasn't just fixing engines. He was rebuilding lives.